The morning sun glinted off the waters of Miami's private marina, where sleek yachts bobbed gently against their moorings. The exclusive dock was a showcase of wealth. Polished sports cars lined the waterfront. Uniformed staff offered chilled drinks to affluent guests, and the air carried a blend of expensive cologne and salty sea breeze. This wasn't just a marina. It was a stage for power and prestige, where every glance sized up status and influence. Dr. Vanessa Brooks stepped out of her black SUV, her high heels clicking softly on the stone-paved path. Vanessa, a black woman in her mid-30s, exuded confidence and elegance. Her navy-tailored dress hugged her frame, accentuating her professional poise, while her natural curls were swept into a neat updo, revealing sharp, observant eyes. Pulling a compact suitcase, she scanned the marina with the calm assurance of someone who belonged. As the CEO of Brooks Enterprises, a conglomerate spanning real estate to tech, Vanessa was here to board her private yacht, Aurora Star, for a business summit in Bermuda. She entered the marina's reception area, a glass-walled building with walnut paneling and cream leather chairs. The air was cool, laced with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. At the front desk, a young employee named Emily greeted her with a bright smile. "Good morning, ma'am," Emily said warmly. "How can I assist you?" Vanessa returned the smile, her voice steady and polite. "I'm Vanessa Brooks. I'm scheduled to board the Aurora Star for Bermuda today." Emily's fingers danced across her keyboard, her eyes flicking to the screen. She nodded. "Yes, Ms. Brooks, everything's in order. The yacht is at Dock 3, and the crew is ready. Would you like to relax in the VIP lounge or head straight to the dock?" "I'll go straight to the yacht," Vanessa replied, adjusting the strap of her shoulder bag. "Thank you." Emily's smile widened. "Of course. Dock 3 is down the hall to your right. Have a wonderful trip." Vanessa nodded and walked toward the hallway, her steps echoing on the marble floor. The corridor, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows, reflected the morning light, and her heels tapped rhythmically. As she neared Dock 3, the Aurora Star came into view, a 200-foot masterpiece of white and gold, its sleek lines gleaming under the sun. This wasn't just a vessel. It was a symbol of Vanessa's hard-earned success, a testament to decades of relentless work. But as she approached, a tall man in a crisp captain's uniform blocked her path. His name tag read, Captain Daniel Harris. He stood with arms crossed, his expression stern. "Excuse me," he said, his tone clipped. "This is a restricted area. Only authorized passengers for private yachts are allowed." Vanessa paused, one eyebrow slightly raised. She offered a polite smile, her eyes locked on his. "I understand," she said evenly. "I'm Vanessa Brooks, and this is my yacht. I'm scheduled for Bermuda today." Captain Harris's lips curled into a faint smirk. He glanced at her suitcase, then up at her outfit, as if appraising her. "You say this is your yacht?" he asked, his voice thick with skepticism. "I'm afraid there's been a mistake. The Aurora Star belongs to a very specific client. You might want to check with the office." Vanessa felt the sting of his words, but her composure held. "I'm certain there's no mistake," she said, her tone calm but firm. "This is Dock 3, and I confirmed with the front desk. They said everything was ready." Harris shook his head, his arms tightening across his chest. "Look, ma'am," he said, lowering his voice with a patronizing edge. "We don't just let random people board yachts like this. The Aurora Star isn't something you book on a whim. Do you have any documentation?" Before Vanessa could respond, a young crew member, her name tag reading Sarah Miller, approached, holding a clipboard. She glanced at Vanessa, then at Harris. "Is there an issue, Captain?" Sarah asked. Just a mix-up, Harris replied dismissively. She thinks she's boarding the Aurora Star. Probably a booking error. Sarah's eyes swept over Vanessa, lingering briefly on her shoes and suitcase before returning to her face. There was a flicker of doubt in her expression, though she kept her tone neutral. "Ma'am," she said, her voice polite but tinged with hesitation. "Do you have a confirmation email or any paperwork? We need to verify." Vanessa took a deep breath, sensing the weight of their assumptions. She pulled her phone from her bag, opened the confirmation email from Brooks Enterprises, and handed it to Sarah. "Here," she said, her voice steady. "This is my confirmation." Sarah took the phone, her eyes scanning the screen. For a moment, her brows lifted, but she quickly masked her surprise. "It looks fine," she said, handing the phone back. "I'll notify the crew." Harris frowned, clearly displeased. He stepped aside reluctantly, but his gaze lingered on Vanessa, a mix of irritation and disbelief in his eyes. Vanessa moved past him, feeling the weight of his stare on her back. She approached the gangway leading to the yacht, each step a quiet defiance against the judgments cast upon her. The Aurora Star loomed ahead, its elegance a stark contrast to the hostility she'd just faced. The interior of the Aurora Star was a vision of understated opulence. Cream leather seats lined the main salon, their cushions plush and inviting, while polished teak paneling gleamed under soft, recessed lighting. A crystal chandelier hung above a dining area, set with fine porcelain and silver cutlery, and the faint scent of jasmine from a nearby floral arrangement mingled with the salty air drifting through open windows. For Vanessa Brooks, this yacht wasn't just a luxury, it was a tool, a floating extension of her global empire, designed for efficiency as much as elegance. As Vanessa stepped into the salon, her heels sank slightly into the thick wool carpet. She paused, taking in the familiar space, a quiet moment to center herself after the encounter at the dock. But the calm was short-lived. Captain Daniel Harris followed her aboard, his heavy footsteps deliberate, his posture radiating irritation. Behind him, Sarah Miller, the young crew member, whispered to another staff member, a man named Tom Reed, whose uniform identified him as a steward. Their hushed voices carried just enough for Vanessa to catch fragments. "Doesn't look like," and "probably a mistake." Vanessa's grip tightened on her suitcase handle, but her expression remained composed. She set her bag beside a leather armchair and turned to face the crew, her gaze steady. "Is everything prepared for departure?" she asked, her tone professional but edged with authority. Harris crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "Ms. Brooks, if that's your name," he said, his voice dripping with condescension, "I'm afraid we need to clarify a few things. This yacht is reserved for a private client, and we weren't informed of any last-minute changes." His pause was deliberate, his eyes narrowing as he scanned her again, as if her presence was an anomaly he couldn't reconcile. Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line, but she held her ground. "There are no changes," she said evenly. "I'm the owner of the Aurora Star. My team confirmed this trip weeks ago. If you're unclear, I suggest you check with the Marina office." Sarah stepped forward, her clipboard clutched tightly. "Ma'am," she said, her voice wavering slightly, "it's just that we have strict protocols. We didn't expect—" She trailed off, her cheeks flushing as she realized her words were digging a deeper hole. "Didn't expect what?" Vanessa asked, her voice calm but piercing. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes locking onto Sarah's. "Someone like me?" Sarah's mouth opened, then closed, her face paling. Tom, the steward, shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Vanessa's gaze. Harris, however, chuckled, a low, dismissive sound that grated against the quiet elegance of the salon. "Let's not make this dramatic," he said, waving a hand. "This is a high-profile vessel, and we have to be cautious. You can't just walk onto a yacht like this and expect us to take your word for it. No offense, but you don't exactly fit the profile." The words landed like a slap, their implication unmistakable. Vanessa felt a familiar sting, one she'd encountered in boardrooms, at galas, and in countless spaces where her presence was questioned, but she refused to let it shake her. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and opened the confirmation email again. "This is my documentation," she said, holding the phone out to Harris. "It includes the booking details, my name, and the authorization from Brooks Enterprises. If you'd like, I can call my executive team to verify." Harris barely glanced at the screen. "That's not necessary," he said, his tone curt. "But we'll need to run this by the marina manager. Until then, I suggest you wait in the lounge." He gestured toward the gangway, as if dismissing her. Sarah whispered something to Tom, her words too low to catch, but her glance at Vanessa was laced with skepticism. Tom nodded, his lips twitching into a smirk. The air in the salon grew heavy, the crew's assumptions hanging like a fog. Vanessa's pulse quickened, but her face remained a mask of calm. She pocketed her phone and straightened, her posture commanding. "Let me be clear," she said, her voice low but firm. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my yacht, and I'm boarding it. If you have an issue, take it up with your superiors, but I'd advise you to check your facts before you make any more assumptions." Harris's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. He opened his mouth to respond, but Sarah cut in, her voice overly polite. "Ms. Brooks, we're just following procedure. No need to take it personally. We'll sort this out." Her tone was conciliatory, but her eyes betrayed doubt, as if she still couldn't believe Vanessa belonged here. Vanessa's gaze swept over the trio, her expression unreadable. "Procedure," she repeated, her voice laced with quiet steel. "Is that what you call it when you judge someone based on how they look? When you dismiss them without even checking the facts?" The salon fell silent, the hum of the yacht's air conditioning the only sound. Harris shifted his weight, his confidence wavering. Sarah clutched her clipboard tighter, her knuckles whitening. Tom stared at the floor, clearly wishing to be elsewhere. Vanessa let the silence linger, her presence filling the space. She could feel their discomfort, their realization that they'd crossed a line, but she wasn't done. "I've dealt with people like you before," she said, her voice steady but cutting. "People who see a black woman and decide she couldn't possibly be in charge. You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice, and that choice says more about you than it does about me." Harris's face reddened, but he held his tongue. Sarah's eyes darted to him, as if seeking guidance, but he offered none. Vanessa turned toward the dining area, her movements deliberate, and sat in one of the leather chairs. She crossed her legs, her posture relaxed but commanding, and pulled out her tablet. "I'll wait here," she said, her tone final. "But I suggest you contact the marina manager, now." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier bravado unraveling. Harris muttered something under his breath and strode toward the gangway, Sarah and Tom trailing behind. Vanessa watched them go, her fingers gliding over her tablet as she opened a document. Her calm was deliberate, a silent challenge to their prejudice. She'd faced this before, and she'd face it again. But today, she'd make sure they remembered who they were dealing with. Outside, the marina buzzed with activity, oblivious to the storm brewing aboard the Aurora Star. Vanessa's heart pounded, but her resolve was unshakable. This wasn't just about her. It was about every person who'd been dismissed, overlooked, or silenced. And she was only getting started. The salon of the Aurora Star was silent, save for the soft hum of the yacht systems and the distant lapping of waves against the hull. Vanessa Brooks sat in a leather armchair, her tablet resting on her lap, her posture relaxed but commanding. The crew's earlier hostility lingered in the air, a tangible weight that seemed to press against the polished teak walls. Captain Daniel Harris, Sarah Miller, and Tom Reed had retreated to the gangway, their hushed voices barely audible as they debated their next move. Vanessa's eyes flicked briefly toward them, then returned to her tablet, her fingers tapping out a quick email to her executive assistant. She was done waiting for them to come to their senses. Minutes ticked by, the tension in the salon thickening. Vanessa's calm was a deliberate contrast to the crew's unease, a silent assertion of her control. She'd faced prejudice before, countless times in fact, but today's encounter felt different. It wasn't just personal. It was a stark reminder of how deeply bias ran, even in spaces designed for exclusivity. She wasn't here to prove herself to them. She was here to demand the respect she'd earned. The sound of hurried footsteps broke the silence. A man in a tailored gray suit appeared at the salon entrance, his face flushed from the Miami heat. His name tag identified him as James Carter, the marina manager. He was in his late 40s, with thinning hair and a nervous smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Ms. Brooks," he said, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. "I'm so sorry for the delay. I came as soon as I was informed." Vanessa set her tablet aside and stood, her movements graceful but deliberate. She shook his hand briefly, her expression neutral. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice steady, "I assume you're aware of the situation." Carter nodded, glancing uneasily at the crew, who had followed him back into the salon. Harris stood with his arms crossed, his earlier smirk replaced by a tight-lipped frown. Sarah clutched her clipboard like a shield, while Tom hovered behind, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Yes, ma'am," Carter said, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding. I've reviewed the records, and everything is in order. You're cleared to board." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, her gaze shifting to Harris. "A misunderstanding?" she repeated, her tone calm but laced with steel. "Is that what you call it when your crew refuses to let me board my own yacht? When they question my identity, mock me, and dismiss me based on nothing more than how I look?" Carter's smile faltered, his hands fidgeting at his sides. "I assure you, Miss Brooks, we take this very seriously. I'll personally ensure—" "Enough," Vanessa interrupted, her voice cutting his words like a blade. She turned to face the crew, her eyes locking onto Harris. "Captain Harris, you told me I didn't fit the profile of someone who could own this yacht. Care to explain what you meant by that?" Harris's face reddened, his jaw tightening. "I was just following protocol," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. "We have to verify passengers. It's standard." "Standard," Vanessa echoed, her voice cold. "Was it standard when you laughed at me? When you suggested I book this yacht on a whim? Or when you refused to even look at my confirmation?" She turned to Sarah. "And you, Ms. Miller, you whispered to your colleague that I didn't belong here. You thought I wouldn't hear, but I did. Is that also standard?" Sarah's eyes widened, her cheeks flushing. I didn't mean it like that," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was just surprised." "Surprised," Vanessa said, her tone sharp. "Because a black woman couldn't possibly own a yacht like this? Because I didn't match your idea of what power looks like?" She let the words hang, their weight settling over the room. Tom shifted uncomfortably, his silence deafening. Carter stepped forward, his voice pleading. Miss Brooks, I deeply regret this. We'll address it immediately. Perhaps a formal apology. No, Vanessa said, her voice firm. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and made a call, putting it on speaker. Claire, it's Vanessa, she said when her assistant answered. I'm on the Aurora Star. There's been an incident with the crew. I need you to coordinate with HR and terminate the contracts of Captain Daniel Harris, Sarah Miller, and Tom Reed, effective immediately. They're no longer employed by Brooks Enterprises. A stunned silence followed. Harris's face drained of color, his mouth opening in protest. Ms. Brooks, please, he said, his voice rising. I've been with this marina for 15 years. This was a mistake, an honest mistake. A mistake, Vanessa said, her eyes narrowing. You chose to humiliate me in front of your crew. You chose to dismiss me without checking the facts. That wasn't a mistake, Captain. It was prejudice, plain and simple. She turned to Sarah, who was visibly trembling. And you, Ms. Miller. Your surprise was an insult, not an excuse. Your actions have consequences. Sarah's eyes welled with tears, but Vanessa's expression didn't soften. She addressed Carter next. Mr. Carter, ensure their termination is processed today. And while you're at it, I want a full review of your hiring and training practices. This kind of behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a symptom of a larger problem, and I won't tolerate it in any organization associated with my name. Carter nodded vigorously, his face pale. Yes, ma'am. I'll oversee it personally. You have my word. Vanessa's gaze swept over the crew one final time. You embarrassed yourselves today, she said, her voice calm but resolute. Not me. Let this be a lesson. Respect isn't optional. It's a requirement. And when you fail to meet that standard, you have no place here. She turned and walked toward the salon's bar, pouring herself a glass of water with steady hands. The crew stood frozen, their futures unraveling before them. Carter ushered them toward the gangway, his voice low and urgent. Vanessa sipped her water, her back to them, her mind already shifting to the bigger picture. This wasn't just about one incident. It was about a system that allowed such incidents to happen, and she was determined to change it. Outside, the marina shimmered under the morning sun, its beauty untouched by the drama unfolding aboard the Aurora Star. Vanessa set her glass down, her resolve hardening. She'd made her point, but the real work was just beginning. The Aurora Star glided smoothly out of Miami's marina, its engines humming as it cut through the turquoise waters toward Bermuda. Vanessa Brooks stood on the upper deck, her hands resting on the polished railing, the sea breeze tugging gently at her dress. The yacht's new crew, hastily arranged by her team, moved efficiently below, their professionalism a stark contrast to the morning's chaos. The sun climbed higher, casting golden ripples across the ocean, but Vanessa's mind was elsewhere, replaying the confrontation with Captain Harris and his crew. She closed her eyes, letting the rhythm of the waves ground her. The sting of their words, Harris's smirk, Sarah's whispers, Tom's silence, lingered, not because they surprised her, but because they were so familiar. Vanessa had faced skepticism and dismissal her entire career, from her early days as a tech startup founder to her rise as CEO of Brooks Enterprises. Each time, she'd pushed through, proving her worth with results. But today's encounter felt heavier, a reminder that no amount of success could fully shield her from prejudice. It wasn't just about her. It was about the countless others who faced the same bias, without the power to fight back. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen, A call from Claire Thompson, her executive assistant and closest confidant. Vanessa answered, her voice steady. Claire, everything handled? Handled and then some, Claire replied, her tone a mix of relief and indignation. HR is processing the terminations, and I've got the marina's legal team scrambling to comply with your review request. James Carter called me twice, practically begging for forgiveness. You okay? Vanessa exhaled, her grip on the railing loosening. I'm fine, she said. Angry, but fine. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. But it's what comes next that matters. Claire's voice softened. You sound like you're already planning something big. What's on your mind? Vanessa's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the ocean met the sky. This isn't just about firing a few bad apples, she said. It's about the culture that lets them thrive. If they could treat me like that, knowing nothing about me, how many others have they dismissed? People who couldn't call their assistant or demand a manager. I want to do more than react, Claire. I want to change the system. There was a pause, then Claire's voice brightened. That's the Vanessa I know. Where do we start? Call a meeting with the leadership team when I'm back, Vanessa said. I want to review every aspect of our operations, hiring, training, vendor contracts, and I'm thinking bigger. A public initiative, something that forces the industry to confront its biases. I'll flesh it out on the trip. Consider it done, Claire said. And Vanessa? I'm proud of you. You didn't let them walk all over you. Vanessa smiled faintly. Thanks, Claire. I'll see you in Bermuda. As the call ended, Vanessa felt a weight lift, replaced by a spark of purpose. She walked to a cushioned lounge chair and sat, pulling out her tablet to jot down ideas. The yacht's deck was quiet, the only sounds the rustle of waves and the occasional cry of a gull. But her mind was alive, racing with possibilities, policy changes, partnerships, maybe even a summit to amplify marginalized voices. Her thoughts were interrupted by a text from her older brother Marcus Brooks, a high school principal in Atlanta. Heard about the marina mess from Claire. You good, sis? Proud of you for standing tall. Call if you need me. Vanessa's chest warmed at the message. Marcus had always been her rock, the one who'd cheered her on through every obstacle, from their childhood in a modest Miami neighborhood to her ascent in the corporate world. She typed a quick reply. I'm good, Marcus. Just getting started. Talk soon. She leaned back, the tablet resting on her lap. The confrontation had shaken her, but it had also clarified something. Her success gave her a platform, and she had a responsibility to use it. Not just for herself, but for the interns, the service workers, the countless others who faced daily slights without recourse. The crew's prejudice wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a deeper flaw, one she was determined to address. Later that evening, as the Aurora Star sailed under a sky streaked with pink and orange, Vanessa stood in her private cabin, a spacious suite with floor-to-ceiling windows and a king-sized bed draped in white linens. She opened her journal, a habit she'd kept since college, and began to write. Today was a reminder of how far I've come and how much further we have to go. I can fire a crew, but can I change the mindset that made them act that way? I don't know yet, but I'm going to try. For me, for Marcus, for every person who's been told they don't belong. She paused, her pen hovering over the page. The yacht rocked gently, a soothing contrast to the fire in her chest. She thought of the crew's faces, Harris's shock, Sarah's tears, Tom's silence, and wondered if they'd learn from this. Part of her hoped they would, but another part knew it wasn't her job to fix them. Her job was to build something better, something that didn't let prejudice fester unchecked. As she closed her journal, a knock sounded at the door. It was the new captain, a woman named Linda Hayes, whose calm professionalism had impressed Vanessa during boarding. "Ms. Brooks," Linda said, "we're on schedule for Bermuda. Anything else you need before we dock?" Vanessa smiled, appreciating the respect in Linda's tone. "Just keep us steady, Captain Hayes. And thank you." Linda nodded and left, closing the door softly. Vanessa turned to the window, watching the ocean stretch endlessly before her. The confrontation was over, but the real battle, against a system that normalized bias, was just beginning. She was ready. The Miami skyline shimmered in the late afternoon sun as Vanessa Brooks stepped out of her SUV and into the sleek lobby of Brooks Enterprises headquarters. The building, a towering structure of glass and steel, was a monument to her vision, a far cry from the cramped apartment she'd grown up in. Inside, the air was cool, the marble floors reflecting the soft glow of pendant lights. Employees nodded respectfully as she passed, their greetings a mix of admiration and curiosity. News of the marina incident had spread, and Vanessa could feel the weight of their gazes, wondering what she'd do next. She rode the elevator to the top floor, her mind racing with ideas. The confrontation on the Aurora Star had lit a fire in her, not just to punish prejudice, but to dismantle the systems that enabled it. She'd spent the Bermuda trip sketching out plans, a comprehensive review of her company's practices, new training programs, and a bold public initiative to challenge bias across industries. Today, she'd start turning those plans into reality. In her corner office, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Vanessa met with Claire Thompson, her executive assistant. Claire, a sharp-witted woman in her 40s with a knack for cutting through bureaucracy, sat across from her, a tablet in hand. "The leadership team's ready for tomorrow's meeting," Claire said, scrolling through her notes. "HR's already pulling data on our hiring and promotion stats, and I've got a short list of consultants for the training overhaul. Where do you want to focus first?" Vanessa leaned forward, her hands clasped on the glass desk. "Start with the culture," she said. "Policies are meaningless if the mindset doesn't change. I want every employee, from interns to executives, to understand what bias looks like and how to confront it. But it's not enough to fix our house. I want to push the industry, yachting, hospitality, all of it, to do better." Claire's eyes lit up. "You're talking about something big, aren't you? Like a summit or a campaign?" "A summit," Vanessa confirmed, her voice firm. "A platform for real change, not just talk. We'll bring together leaders, advocates, and people who've faced discrimination. I want commitments, measurable goals, not empty promises. And I want it to be accessible, not just for the elite, but for the people who keep these industries running." Claire jotted notes, her pen moving furiously. "I love it. We could call it breaking barriers. I'll reach out to some nonprofits we've worked with. Maybe the Equity Alliance. We'll need a venue, speakers, and a media strategy to keep the focus on the issues, not the marina drama." Vanessa nodded, appreciating Claire's efficiency. "Good. And keep the media at arm's length for now. This isn't about me. It's about the bigger picture." As Claire left to make calls, Vanessa turned to her computer, drafting an email to her board with the summit's outline. But her thoughts kept drifting to the marina, to Harris's smirk, Sarah's whispers, and the countless others who'd faced similar slights without the power to respond. She wanted this summit to amplify their voices, to make sure they were heard. Later that day, Vanessa took an unannounced walk through the company's lower floors, stopping at the employee break room. The space was modest, with round tables, a coffee machine, and a bulletin board covered in flyers. A group of junior staff, analysts, assistants, and interns, looked up in surprise as she entered. Ms. Brooks, one of them, a young man named Jamal Carter, said, standing quickly. "We didn't expect you here." Vanessa smiled, gesturing for him to sit. "I wanted to hear from you all," she said, pulling up a chair. "You're the heart of this company. What's on your minds? What can we do better?" The room was quiet, at first, the employees exchanging hesitant glances. Then a young woman, Lisa Nguyen, spoke up. "It's amazing what you did at the marina," she said, her voice soft but earnest. "But sometimes it feels like the big changes happen upstairs, and we're not sure how they reach us down here." Vanessa nodded, her expression thoughtful. "That's a fair point, Lisa. Change has to happen at every level. What would make you feel more included, more heard?" Jamal raised a hand. "Maybe more transparency," he said. "Like knowing how decisions are made, or having a way to share ideas without feeling like they'll get ignored." "I'd love a mentorship program," Lisa added, her eyes brightening. "Something that connects us with leaders who can guide us, especially for those of us who don't have a lot of connections in the industry." Vanessa's smile widened. "Those are great ideas. Consider them on the table. Anything else?" The conversation flowed, the employees growing more comfortable as they shared experiences, moments of being overlooked, ideas dismissed, or feeling like they had to prove themselves twice as hard. Vanessa listened intently, taking mental notes. This was what she needed. Real voices, real perspectives, not just boardroom theories. Back in her office, Vanessa found a surprise waiting on her desk, a plain white envelope, unmarked except for her name in neat handwriting. Curious, she opened it and unfolded a single sheet of paper. "Dear Ms. Brooks, I was at the marina when the incident happened. I saw how the crew treated you, and I saw how you handled it, with strength and dignity. I've worked in this industry for years, and I've seen things that made me want to quit. But watching you stand up to them gave me hope. You showed that change is possible, even in places where it feels out of reach. Thank you for reminding me why I keep going. Sincerely, a witness." Vanessa stared at the letter, her throat tightening. It was a small gesture, but it carried weight, a reminder that her actions rippled beyond the Aurora star. She placed the letter in her desk drawer, a quiet symbol of her purpose. The summit wasn't just about policy or prestige, it was about people like the writer, people who needed to know they weren't alone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the office in hues of orange, Vanessa opened her laptop and began typing notes for Claire. Potential partners for the summit, scholarship ideas, ways to ensure diverse voices led the conversation. The road ahead was long, but the letter had steeled her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for a world where no one had to prove they belonged. The evening sky over Miami was a canvas of deep indigo, dotted with stars that shimmered like scattered jewels. Vanessa Brooks sat on the balcony of her penthouse, a steaming mug of chamomile tea cradled in her hands. Below, the city pulsed with life, car lights weaving through the streets, the distant hum of nightlife. But up here, it was quiet, the only sound the soft rustle of palm fronds in the breeze. Vanessa's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the ocean met the sky, her mind replaying the events of the past weeks. The Breaking Barriers Summit had been a triumph, its impact rippling far beyond the convention center. News outlets had covered the event, not for scandal, but for its bold vision, with headlines praising the pledges from industry leaders and the voices of workers like Carlos Rivera and Lisa Nguyen. Social media buzzed with hashtags, breaking barriers, change now, spreading stories from attendees who'd left inspired to act. Brooks Enterprises had already begun implementing changes, a mentorship program for junior staff, mandatory bias training, and a diversity task force led by employees at all levels. But Vanessa knew this was just the start. She set her mug on the glass table, her fingers lingering on its warmth. The marina incident felt like a lifetime ago, yet it remained a touchstone, a moment that had crystallized her purpose. She thought of Captain Harris's shock, Sarah's tears, and Tom's silence when she'd fired them. She didn't relish their downfall, but she hoped it had been a wake-up call, a chance for them to confront their biases. More than that, she hoped it sent a message to others. Prejudice had no place in her world, and she'd hold everyone accountable. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Claire Thompson. Just got word. The Equity Alliance wants to partner on a national training program based on the summit. They're calling it a game changer. You did this, Vanessa. Vanessa smiled, typing a quick reply. We did this. Let's make it happen. Claire's partnership had been invaluable. Her pragmatism, balancing Vanessa's vision. Together, they'd turned a moment of injustice into a movement. Vanessa's older brother Marcus had arrived earlier that evening, bringing his usual calm presence and a box of her favorite almond cookies. He sat across from her now, his legs stretched out, a glass of sparkling water in hand. You're too quiet, he said, his voice warm but probing. What's going on in that head of yours? Vanessa sighed, her shoulders relaxing. Just thinking about how much has changed, she said, and how much hasn't. The summit was incredible, but it's one step. I keep wondering if it's enough, if I'm doing enough. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes steady. You've been moving mountains your whole life, Vanessa. You took a moment that could have broken someone else and turned it into something bigger than you. That's not just enough. It's everything. But what about the people who don't have my platform? She asked. The ones who face this every day and can't call a manager or fire a crew? How do I make sure this reaches them? That's why you're doing it, Marcus said firmly. Every step you take, every policy, every speech, makes it easier for the next person. You're not just changing things for now. You're building a foundation for the future. Vanessa nodded, his words settling over her like a warm blanket. She thought of the anonymous letter from the Marina witness, now tucked in her desk drawer, and the countless others who'd reached out since the summit. Employees, strangers, even a few industry peers confessing their own blind spots. Each message was a reminder that her actions had sparked something real, something that could grow. Later that night, Vanessa retreated to her home office, a cozy space with bookshelves lining the walls and a window overlooking the city. She opened her journal, the leather cover worn from years of use, and began to write. Today, I saw what's possible when people come together with purpose. The summit wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It gave voice to those who have been silenced, and it challenged those with power to do better. But change is a journey, not a finish line. I'll keep listening, keep pushing, because the world we're building is worth it. She paused, her pen hovering over the page. The memory of the marina flashed again. Harris's smirk, the weight of their assumptions, but it no longer stung. Instead, it fueled her. She closed the journal and opened her laptop, pulling up a draft of her next initiative. A scholarship fund for underrepresented students in hospitality and tech, paired with a mentorship network to guide them. Claire had already lined up potential partners, and Vanessa added notes for a follow-up summit, one that would track progress on the pledges made. As she worked, a quiet satisfaction settled over her. The marina incident had been a spark, but the summit had turned it into a flame, one she'd keep tending. She thought of Lisa's courage, Carlos's honesty, and the countless faces in the audience, each carrying their own stories. They were why she'd keep going, why she'd never settle for a world that judged people before knowing them. Vanessa stood and walked to the window, the city lights stretching before her. The stars above were faint but persistent, a reminder that even the smallest lights could pierce the darkness. She'd keep planting those lights, one action at a time, until the world reflected the justice she believed in. And so, what began as a moment of prejudice became a powerful call for change. Vanessa Brooks didn't just reclaim her place, she reshaped the spaces around her, proving that one voice, backed by courage and conviction, could inspire a movement. If her story moves you, let it be a reminder. Stand up, speak out, and together, we can build a world where everyone belongs. The evening sky over Miami was a canvas of deep indigo, dotted with stars that shimmered like scattered jewels. Vanessa Brooks sat on the balcony of her penthouse, a steaming mug of chamomile tea cradled in her hands. Below, the city pulsed with life, car lights weaving through the streets, the distant hum of nightlife. But up here, it was quiet, the only sound the soft rustle of palm fronds in the breeze. Vanessa's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the ocean met the sky, her mind replaying the events of the past weeks. The Breaking Barriers Summit had been a triumph, its impact rippling far beyond the convention center. News outlets had covered the event, not for scandal, but for its bold vision, with headlines praising the pledges from industry leaders and the voices of workers like Carlos Rivera and Lisa Nguyen. Social media buzzed with hashtags, Breaking Barriers, Change Now, spreading stories from attendees who'd left inspired to act. Brooks Enterprises had already begun implementing changes, a mentorship program for junior staff, mandatory bias training, and a diversity task force led by employees at all levels. But Vanessa knew this was just the start. She set her mug on the glass table, her fingers lingering on its warmth. The marina incident felt like a lifetime ago, yet it remained a touchstone, a moment that had crystallized her purpose. She thought of Captain Harris's shock, Sarah's tears, and Tom's silence when she'd fired them. She didn't relish their downfall, but she hoped it had been a wake-up call, a chance for them to confront their biases. More than that, she hoped it sent a message to others. Prejudice had no place in her world, and she'd hold everyone accountable. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Claire Thompson. Just got word. The Equity Alliance wants to partner on a national training program based on the summit. They're calling it a game changer. You did this, Vanessa. Vanessa smiled, typing a quick reply. We did this. Let's make it happen. Claire's partnership had been invaluable. Her pragmatism, balancing Vanessa's vision. Together, they'd turned a moment of injustice into a movement. Vanessa's older brother Marcus had arrived earlier that evening, bringing his usual calm presence and a box of her favorite almond cookies. He sat across from her now, his legs stretched out, a glass of sparkling water in hand. You're too quiet, he said, his voice warm but probing. What's going on in that head of yours? Vanessa sighed, her shoulders relaxing. Just thinking about how much has changed, she said, and how much hasn't. The summit was incredible, but it's one step. I keep wondering if it's enough, if I'm doing enough. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes steady. You've been moving mountains your whole life, Vanessa. You took a moment that could have broken someone else and turned it into something bigger than you. That's not just enough. It's everything. But what about the people who don't have my platform? She asked. The ones who face this every day and can't call a manager or fire a crew? How do I make sure this reaches them? That's why you're doing it, Marcus said firmly. Every step you take, every policy, every speech makes it easier for the next person. You're not just changing things for now. You're building a foundation for the future. Vanessa nodded, his words settling over her like a warm blanket. She thought of the anonymous letter from the Marina witness, now tucked in her desk drawer, and the countless others who'd reached out since the summit. Employees, strangers, even a few industry peers confessing their own blind spots. Each message was a reminder that her actions had sparked something real, something that could grow. Later that night, Vanessa retreated to her home office, a cozy space with bookshelves lining the walls and a window overlooking the city. She opened her journal, the leather cover worn from years of use, and began to write. Today, I saw what's possible when people come together with purpose. The summit wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It gave voice to those who have been silenced, and it challenged those with power to do better. But change is a journey, not a finish line. I'll keep listening, keep pushing, because the world we're building is worth it. She paused, her pen hovering over the page. The memory of the Marina flashed again. Harris's smirk, the weight of their assumptions, but it no longer stung. Instead, it fueled her. She closed the journal and opened her laptop, pulling up a draft of her next initiative. A scholarship fund for underrepresented students in hospitality and tech, paired with a mentorship network to guide them. Claire had already lined up potential partners, and Vanessa added notes for a follow-up summit, one that would track progress on the pledges made. As she worked, a quiet satisfaction settled over her. The Marina incident had been a spark, but the summit had turned it into a flame, one she'd keep tending. She thought of Lisa's courage, Carlos's honesty, and the countless faces in the audience, each carrying their own stories. They were why she'd keep going, why she'd never settle for a world that judged people before knowing them. Vanessa stood and walked to the window, the city lights stretching before her. The stars above were faint but persistent, a reminder that even the smallest lights could pierce the darkness. She'd keep planting those lights, one action at a time, until the world reflected the justice she believed in. And so, what began as a moment of prejudice became a powerful call for change. Vanessa Brooks didn't just reclaim her place. She reshaped the spaces around her, proving that one voice, backed by courage and conviction, could inspire a movement. If her story moves you, let it be a reminder. Stand up, speak out, and together, we can build a world where everyone belongs,